Hello, everybody, and welcome to Atheist Sunday School, your one-stop shop for everything Atheist Sunday and school. And boy, do we have a show for you today. Today we are covering Isaiah chapters 56 through 59. And this is Trito-Isaiah.
Yes, it is. We're not really going to delve too deep into the history of scholarship on this.
Why not?
I mean, we have a little bit of stuff on this just out here in front of me. You know, sadly, we don't have, another Hermenia commentary on this, although I wish we did. But we do have a few things. So it is the vast consensus in biblical scholarship, with only a few dissenters, that these chapters, from here to the end of the book, are a later edition. And so it would have, first been first Isaiah, and then second, and then third, of course. So let's talk a little bit about the date and purpose, the gap that this kind of fills in. So I am going to take a little bit here from Westerman's commentary. So in the year 538, Cyrus, king of Persia, issued the edict concerning the rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem. Of course, we covered the biblical account of that in Ezra.
Right, where they had to bless the stones and they had to get everything back together. I don't even know why, because a fair amount of the stuff there was destroyed or just taken. Mm-hmm. So why even use the same stones?
I think there was something special about them, right? I think we covered that in Kings, didn't we?
Yeah, because they were the stones that were in the temple. Yeah. But the rest of the stones were destroyed. So
either way. So continue on here. Yeah, we just reminded you guys of Cyrus and his whole shtick. Really powerful guy, Cyrus. The text of the edict is preserved, big quotations preserved, in Ezra 6:3, dated to the first year of the reign of Cyrus, which means the first year of his sovereignty over the empire of Babylon. In the following year, 537, a small number of Israelites returned from Babylon to Jerusalem. And then they started the rebuilding of the temple. But it also stopped short at this. Nothing more was done toward the building. The reason was given in Haggai 1 through 11. Things were so uncertain, circumstances were so straitened, and economic troubles were so severe that the vast operation, which needed a common effort, was discontinued. When in 522, the king of Persia, Cambyses, died without leaving an heir to the throne, and the kingship fell to Darius, disturbances throughout the whole of the empire were the occasion of a new movement in Jerusalem. The prophet Haggai appeared with his message that all progress and prosperity depended on the rebuilding of the temple. Work on it was resumed towards the end of the year 520. These are also the circumstances and the time in which the in which the prophet Zechariah delivered his proclamation. Darius, who was soon in full control, gave his approval to further the work of the temple. The newly erected sanctuary was consecrated in 515. Nevertheless, there was no thoroughgoing change for the better, as Haggai and Zechariah had proclaimed there would be. We are given a vivid description of the difficulties and confused state of things by the prophet Malachi, whose activity lies in this period, around 470. And that's BC, a period about which we have scarcely any other information. Change only came with the reform of Nehemiah and Ezra, which began in 445. There can be no doubt that the activity of the prophet of Trito-Isaiah falls within the period between 537 and 455. The reason for the involved discussion about a nearer determination of its actual point within these limits was due to the fact that efforts to determine the strands from which the collection of writings grew up had been met with no success. I cannot talk
That's okay.
Thank you. Taking what is clearly the nucleus, chapters 60 through 62, as the basis of inquiry, it is at once perfectly evident that the point in history at which Trito Isaiah made his proclamation is the beginning of this period, that is to say, the years between 537 and 515. Haggai's description of them tallies exactly what can be gathered about exactly what can be gathered about them from the proclamations contained. From the proclamations contained those chapters 60 through 62. Since chapter 60, 13, says that the temple had not yet been rebuilt, we may infer a date previous to Haggai and Zechariah, that is, before 521. Thus, Trito Isaiah's activity fell between 537 and 521, perhaps about the year 530. Of its duration, we have no idea. It was certainly not more than a few years, and perhaps less than one. It is impossible to determine the dates of the later strands in chapters 56 through 66. The one which shows a division into the transgressors and the devout cannot be much later than Trito Isaiah because of the clear picture it gives of the beginning of the cleavage. So, yeah, that's there's a whole lot more about the structure and composition here, but honestly, it's mostly just lists of verses, and it can just get kind of complex and bogged down. And especially if we're like reading it out or something, it wouldn't be helpful. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So either way, aside from that, there's not really much. There is one section here I wanted to read out from Erdman's commentary. So the people left in the land had not accepted the Deuteronomic reform, but kept the ancient ways. We have to imagine the impact of the newly returned exiles with their new form of religion, regarding themselves as the chosen ones, thanks to Jeremiah's vision of the baskets of figs. And despite their own earlier teachings, that possession of the land was a sign of the Lord's favor. Yeah. They had more stringent laws and emphasized racial purity. Of course, that was kind of a centerpiece, I should say, of Ezra and Nehemiah, the racial purity.
Yes, and literally Jewish supremacists.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like, yeah, we really appreciate how the Persians helped us out here, but you can't taint our race.
Yeah, we're gonna build a wall.
Yeah. Either way, we can honestly hop into some of the actual readings. I mean, we're talking about some idolatry today, and that's always fun. I always enjoy that.
Yeah, they destroy these idols so often.
They do, and they condemn them a lot as well.
Yeah, they do.
As they should.
Because those gods can't tell the future.
No, they can't. And they can't talk. They can't hear. None of that stuff.
They don't walk around, so...
Exactly, they don't. Yeah. What a downfall.
Why would you worship that?
Exactly. All right, so how about we introduce the books that we have?
Yeah, I have the King James Version of the Bible.
I have the English Standard Version of the Bible.
We also have...
A lot of stuff. Yeah, we
commentary.
Have Erdman's commentary. We have Robert Alter's commentary and translation of the Hebrew Bible.
And we have Westerman's.
Yes, Klaus Westerman's commentary on Deuteronomy Isaiah. And actually, hold on.
Wait,
these are actually...
There is a Westerly that we've read, right? Wasn't there?
Was there a Westerly?
Was it?
I don't think there was.
Man,
I don't remember.
I remember another West name at some point.
I don't. Cool. All right. Either way, maybe we did, maybe we didn't.
I think during Friday Apocryphal podcast.
All right, whatever.
Translations that we had.
Okay, well, we'll. Oh, was it the Ben Sira one?
I think.
I forget the dude's name.
One of them.
All right. Either way, yeah, and then we also have the Holy Scriptures according to some Jews and the New King James Version of the Bible.
Yeah, and we also have some other stuff on Isaiah that.
Yeah, we do.
We're probably not referencing today.
No, we're not. And if we get bogged down or something, if we really need an answer to something, we can check in one of them. Yeah. So just
prophecy and the prophets in ancient Israel.
Yeah, that one's a good collection of papers there too.
Yep.
So yeah, prophecy and the prophets in ancient Israel from John Day. We have the suffering servant, Isaiah 53, in Jewish and Christian sources, and that's from Bernd Janowski and Peter Stuhlmacher. And oh man, these names always they kill me here. So we have Isaiah in the New Testament. We're probably not going to need that. Edited by Steve Moisi and Martine J.J. Mencken.
All right.
Yeah, well, those are the books that we can reference.
Maybe we can get them on the show when we get into the New Testament.
And ask them how their names are pronounced?
Yeah.
Okay.
Please tell us. If you're out there listening to the show now,
please let us know how to pronounce your names.
Yeah. All right. I guess I'll start. Yeah. Chapter 56. Thus saith the Lord, keep ye judgment and do justice, for my salvation is near to come, and my righteousness to be revealed. Blessed is the man that doeth this, and the Son of Man that layeth hold on it, that keepeth the Sabbath from polluting it, and keepeth his hand from doing any evil. I assume the Son of Man here is just any human being.
Any human, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Neither let the son of the stranger that hath joined himself to the Lord speak, saying, the Lord hath utterly separated me from his people. Neither let the eunuch say, behold.
Behold! Early behold, love it.
I am a dry tree.
So the Lord has kept me apart from his people, nor, and that this is in the quote, nor let the eunuch say, why I am a withered tree. So this declaration extends the prophet's program of inclusion. Eunuchs and men otherwise sexually maimed were prohibited from participation in the temple cult. Mm-hmm. And I remember that one, that there's some good history with that.
Yes.
One, therefore, may infer that the joining the Lord envisaged here is not limited to the cultic, though sacrifices are mentioned in verse 7, but involves entering a community of observance, in particular, observance of the Sabbath. The eunuch can produce no biological offspring, heretic. But in adhering to the covenant, he becomes part of the community. He becomes part of the community. This notion is spelled out in verse 5. So yeah, once you get to verse 5, I'm sure we'll figure that out.
Okay. For thus saith the Lord unto the eunuchs that keep my Sabbaths, and choose the things that please me, and take hold of my covenant. Even unto them will I give in mine house and within my walls a place and a name better than the sons and daughters. I will give them an everlasting name that shall not be cut off.
Okay, so that's even better than even better than just having offspring. It's your name. Mm-hmm. It's your reputation.
Right. Because that's the whole point of having offspring from like a second temple perspective, right? Ugh, that's pretty gross.
Yeah, Ben Sira, he went on and on about that.
Yeah, he did. Also, the sons of the stranger that join themselves to the Lord to serve him and to love the name of the Lord, to be his servants, every one that keepeth the Sabbath from polluting it and taketh hold of my covenant, even them will I bring to my holy mountain, and make them joyful in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and their sacrifices shall be accepted upon mine altar. For mine house shall be called a house of prayer for all people.
So, of course, the holy mountain there.
Right, and now we're
Zion.
moving away from the very ethnocentric.
Yeah, so the end of that verse there. So, or not the end of it, I guess the middle of it, really. Their burnt offerings and sacrifices.
Mm-hmm.
shall be welcome on my altar. For my house, a house of prayer shall be called for all the peoples.
Yeah, so here it says that the goys, the goyim, they can participate in making sacrifices and engage in the proceedings in the temple.
Yeah, so here's some commentary from Westerman. To encounter the foreigner's lament, the promise is made that I bring you to my holy mountain. Here the metaphor applies to the realm of the cult. Foreigners may have part in my worship. The words let us see how a piece of specifically Jerusalem theology had come to be part of the general language of worship. In the case of Deutero-Isaiah, the promise of return had been accompanied by a summons to rejoice. Now a share in that joy is assigned to foreigners. But it is a joy completely divorced from the realm of history. It is joy in the wonderful worship of Yahweh. So it's joy with something completely different. Significantly, the temple is now called House of Prayer. Because sacrifice had not been possible during the exile, the spoken element in worship had become the dominant one. Thus, tefillah, I'm probably mispronouncing that, lost its specific meaning of intercession and became a general term for prayer. Before this, there had been no such general and comprehensive term. Foreigners are assured that the sacrifices which they bring will be wholly accepted. This makes them members of the community in full standing. In the time of Deutero-Isaiah, the offering of sacrifice had also a social and economic aspect. The sacrificial animals represent a portion of the family property. By sacrifice, the home has its part in worship. Sacrifice begets blessing and respect in the locality. The acceptance of a foreigner's sacrifice means that, properly speaking, they cease to be foreigners. What makes the temple a house of prayer for all peoples is the fact that this present regulation now opens access to it. Now opens access to it and to its worship to members of other races. So this is, it's, I guess, inclusive to other races.
Yeah, but, which is out of step with the general culture at the time.
Yeah, or maybe these would have been different because of how things were, like the change from being in exile to not anymore. Maybe there was like kind of like a split.
Maybe there's like an underlying sarcasm here that we're not getting.
Maybe.
Like, because just out of nowhere, he starts talking about eunuchs, and then, like, immediately thereafter, he starts talking about the strangers who come and give sacrifices to him. So is it like a subtle jab, like he's comparing them to eunuchs?
So, well, that's I guess maybe that's it. You could be onto something there. Here is a note from Ehrman's that we might find interesting. So, a comparison of Deuteronomy 7:1-6 and Ezra 9:1-2 shows how closely the returned exiles identified with the Deuteronomists' ideal of separation from the people of the land. The implication is that the worshippers of the Lord who had not been in exile were treated as though they were Canaanites. Because it wasn't just the Jews that were in exile, I guess. So, because the Babylonians took, a good chunk of the land there.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Until they couldn't really get into the part that was owned by or controlled by Persia. They couldn't get into that part. They were just too damn good. And the thing is, it wasn't even that big initially. They just kind of had their stronghold, and then Cyrus was like, none of this shit anymore. So he just started rushing through. And the thing is, his timing was very good too.
All right, I'm gonna keep going then. Even them will I bring to my holy mountain, and make them joyful in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and their sacrifices shall be accepted on mine altar. for mine house shall be called a house of prayer for all people. The Lord God, which gathereth the outcasts of Israel, saith, Yet will I gather others to him, besides those that are gathered unto him. All ye beasts of the field, come to devour, all ye beasts of the forest.
So verse 9 there, of course, marks the beginning of a new prophecy, one of castigation. It is usually assumed that the devouring beasts are a metaphorical representation of Israel's enemies, which makes sense. That's used all the time, where some of the pretty much the worst forces are sometimes denoted as beasts.
Right. And like big animals like lions or things for holy characters to defeat. Like,
well, sure, there is that aspect. You could do it in like a poetic kind of fashion, or like in an epic form, I guess. But also, like, okay, so take for example Daniel. In Daniel, the enemies of Israel are portrayed to be these creatures, and
kind of like the animal apocalypse.
In a way, yeah. So,
all right,
yeah,
it's dehumanizing.
Yes.
His watchmen are blind. They are all ignorant. They are all dumb dogs. They cannot bark, sleeping, lying down, loving to slumber. Yea, they are greedy dogs, which can never have enough. And they are shepherds that cannot understand. They all look to their own. Way. Everyone for his gain from his quarter. Come ye, say they. I will fetch wine, and we will fill ourselves with strong drink, and tomorrow shall be as this day, and much more abundant.
So yeah, they're mocking these guys, I guess.
They call
making
them
fun
dumb
of them.
dogs and greedy dogs.
Well, here's the translation from Alter. So his watchmen are all of them blind. They do not know. All of them are mute dogs who know not how to bark. Dazed, they lie about, lovers of slumber. But the dogs are fierce in appetite. They are never sated. So that's kind of where that section on dogs ends.
Still, even back then and in that setting, to call someone a dog was pretty insulting.
Absolutely. So dogs. Oh yeah. Okay. So dogs in biblical passages. You remember when it was used to describe the cult prostitutes?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there may be kind of a tie into that. Alter says dogs in biblical language is always a term of opprobrium, truly insulting for leaders or prophets. The muteness refers to their failure to rebuke the people as they should have done. Mm-hmm. There is scant evidence that watchdogs were used in ancient Israel. Most of the biblical references to dogs conceive them as feral scavengers, not domesticated animals, but also prostitutes.
These people,
not dogs literally, but the people, prostitutes are called dogs. Yeah.
These people here, I guess they're drinking grappa. Strong drink is usually reference to that, right?
Let's see. The evocation of drunken leaders may allude to chapter 28. The word for come is in it's Aramaicized.
Yeah, because it's like come ye, say they, right? So it's like they're saying this, so you would have an Aramaicized version of it. That's pretty creative.
Yeah. So in poetic parallelism, the more common term yain, wine, always occurs in the first verset, and shikar, strong drink, in the second. But since shikar, in all likelihood, grappa, has a higher alcohol content, this order also follows the principle of intensification of parallel terms from the first verset to the second.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that's the end of chapter 56. If you're enjoying
not very long.
Yeah, but if you're enjoying the stream so far, give us a like, share it, comment, friends, family, neighbors, give it to them in a sealed envelope, handwritten. note.
It has to be handwritten.
Yeah.
If it isn't, I'm just
They'll get
disappointed.
you. The internet will get you.
Here's all this stuff. You can feel free to
Yep.
take all that, have fun with it. Yeah, so short chapter.
This next chapter is pretty short too. About the same length. A little longer.
Yeah, they're not very long chapters today. And then next week, we're actually finishing Isaiah.
Wow.
Are we? I mean, I looked.
Are you excited about that?
We could stretch it to 2 weeks if we wanted to.
I mean, after this, we'd
it
have
goes
4
to
more.
66.
Did I do my counting wrong?
I think you did.
I did, you're right.
Counting ever.
It goes to 66. 2 weeks from now, we're finishing Isaiah.
Yeah,
Don't
probably.
lie to the people.
Yeah. Man, that would have been embarrassing.
You know, we'd probably just keep going anyways.
Yeah, probably. Anyways, so we're about to read this chapter, and this chapter,
If I stop coughing.
this keeps closing itself. So,
Okay.
but this chapter, so there's Psalm 12, verse 1, and Micah 7:2. Both resemble the first 2 verses of this chapter.
Okay. So, chapter 57. The righteous man perishes, and no one lays it to heart. Devout men are taken away, while no one understands.
So taken away, Alter says taken off, but it's literally gathered. In all probability, euphemism for dying, perhaps an elliptical form of the idiom gathered to his fathers.
Okay. For the righteous man is taken away from calamity. And I suppose if the same word is used there, then the sweet release of death is what they're going for.
Mm.
He enters into peace. They rest in their beds, who walk in their uprightness. But you draw near, sons of the sorceress, offspring of the adulterer and the loose woman. Raunchy.
So the first 2 verses are kind of their own section, since verse 3 begins a fresh oracle of a different kind. So
Yeah, it does seem that because they're talking about the righteous in general and how they will be at peace, I guess.
So then
it goes like, but you, I have something to say about you.
So Psalm 12 and Micah 7, both places the words are a lament. They're a lament over the rapid growth of the transgressors who have spread to such an extent that because of their power, the devout and upright have disappeared. The 3 lines in Isaiah 57:1 correspond to the lament in Psalm 12, both in content and to some extent verbally as well, both being similarly introduced. The righteous man perishes, but these same words also occur in Micah 7:2, where they have combined with them a description of the transgressors. The devout men have disappeared from the land. There is none upright among the men. The transgressors, all lie in wait for blood, and each lays a net for the other. Well, the text of Micah 7:1 is difficult. The passage is also evidence of how a prophet can associate a charge with a lament. This is also the case here. Verse 3 appends a charge to this lament. It's perfectly possible that this conjunction gives us the reason why pre-exilic prophetic oracles of judgment found entrance into the pages of Trito-Isaiah. The breakup into 2 different groups which begin after the return, the one regarding itself as that of the devout and the righteous as over against the transgressors, caused an earlier prophetic oracles of judgment to be taken up and interpreted with reference to the new situation. In the present case, those addressed in verse 3 were interpreted as the transgressors of the day. Verse 2 is hard to elucidate, and in addition, there is disorder in the text. The transgressors are contrasted with a devout man who goes on his upright way. It's said of him that he goes about in peace and they rest in their beds. The change from singular to plural is evidence of textual disturbance. Further, the juxtapositions of transgressors and devout, so frequent in the Psalms, is not perfectly clear. Here it's important to notice that the two pronouncements of judgment, verses 3 through 6 and verses 7 through 13, are set within a framework of words taken from the Psalms. That is to say, the words which introduce the lament over the increase that the transgressors have in verse 57, 13, words corresponding to them also taken from the Psalms.
Yeah, so I'm looking through some of this right now, and yeah, there's so much stuff that we saw in Psalms.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to continue here.
So a lot of this is just going to be references to the Psalms.
Sure.
So
I'm going to start with verse 3 again. But you draw near, sons of the sorceress, offspring of the adulterer, and the loose woman.
Yeah, this verse.
Whom are you mocking? Against whom do you open your mouth and stick wide your tongue? Are you not children of transgression, the offspring of deceit? Yeah. So it's it's like you're bastards.
Yeah. So
you were born in sin. You have no room to criticize.
So verse 3 says the seed of an adulterer and a whore. This verse, set in conjunction with verses 5 through 9, makes a double use of sexual promiscuity. The prophet seems to assume that dabbling in pagan magical rites is associated with violating the constraints of sexual morality, perhaps because orgiastic rites are practiced. At the same time, promiscuity, as elsewhere in the Bible, is a metaphor for abandoning Yahweh, Israel's true husband, for dalliance with foreign gods. For a whore, the Masoretic text shows a verb, and she went whoring, but several ancient versions reflect
whoring after other gods. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the whoring after other gods thing has shown up a few times.
Definitely. All right, let's continue on, shall we? Are you not children of transgression, the offspring of deceit, you who burn with lust among the oaks under every green tree? Who slaughter your children in the valleys, under the clefts of rocks. So there's got to be some stuff there. There's a textual note.
There is a really different translation here in Alter.
Okay.
Who go into heat over gods under every lush tree, slaughtering children in wadis under crevices in the rocks.
Wow, that is very different. Does he have a commentary on that?
He does.
Okay.
So the previous comment, okay, so it says, who goes into heat over gods is a remark on the double use of sexuality, which previously mentioned.
Among the gods there, that's interesting because mine is just like with lust among the oaks.
Maybe it's like the Asherim.
Maybe,
or something. The phrase under every lush tree occurs in Jeremiah and elsewhere to indicate abandonment to paganism. And what may be in view here is the practice of fertility cults under sacred trees, slaughtering children in wadis. The inveighing against child sacrifice, which began to be widespread in the 8th century BCE, picks up the purely metaphorical aspect of the language of sexual promiscuity just introduced.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Among the smooth stones of the valley is your portion. And I remember the smooth stones thing in Psalms popped up, I think.
So, although the meaning's not certain, this may refer to sacred steles, S-T-E-L-E-S, matzevot, made of piles of stones. Yeah. The wadis are where the abomination of child sacrifice is performed.
Pretty sure those are the high places.
Yeah. Well, it says here, your share is in the stones of the wadi.
Okay.
It should be noted that throughout this passage, you is a feminine singular, the female personification of the people, which also accords with the motif of sexual betrayal.
And also remember that psalm, right?
Yeah.
Where Israel got married to God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's coming up, I'm going to read this before you get into it, but from Eerdmans. 57, 7 through 10, introduces Jerusalem the harlot, an image which was to persist for centuries in the writings of the dispossessed, e.g. Revelation 17. The new temple was the harlot's bed, bed and tabernacle, coming from similar Hebrew words. Verse 9 is obscure, seems to be a comment on what happened to the worship of the king in Jerusalem. Originally a title for the Lord, the new king in Jerusalem is the Persian monarch, for whom prayers were said. See Ezra 6:10. We know we covered that. He's described as Molech, Canaanite deity whose name means the king.
Yeah, lots of stuff has been done on Molech. I think Francesca Stavrokopoulou wrote the whole book about the whole child sacrifice motif, but it costs so much fucking money. Like, I want to read it, but it just costs so much money. Can't afford that shit.
Yeah, so Alter also has a lot of notes about verse 8 that we'll get into shortly.
Yeah, tell you what, once I finish verse 8.
But it appears that there's like linguistic problems that we're about to get into.
Okay.
With this subsection.
Very excited here. So yeah, I just read the first part of verse 6 there.
Yeah.
So among the smooth stones of the valley is your portion. They are your lot. To them you have poured out a drink offering. You have brought a grain offering. Shall I relent for these things? On a high and lofty mountain you have set your bed, and there you went up to offer sacrifice. Behind the door and the doorpost you have set up your memorial. For deserting me, you have uncovered your bed. You have gone up to it. You have made it wide, and you have made a covenant for yourself with them. You have loved their bed. You have looked on nakedness.
Yeah, so Alter translates this a little differently. The same fundamental idea is there. He says for verse 8,
the fundamental idea being you hoard yourself out, basically.
Yeah. It says, behind the door and doorpost you have put your mark. He says the noun usually means memorial. It would appear to be some sort of ritual marker of pagan worship, analogous to the words of the Torah to be affixed to the doorpost according to the injunctions in Deuteronomy. For away from me you bared yourself, climbed up, made room on your couch. So away from me, the sense of the Hebrew proposition is uncertain. For climbed up, made room on your couch. Climbing up is the verb used in biblical idiom for getting into bed. This is Israel getting into bed with the alien gods. Yeah. Then, and you sealed a pact with them. You loved bedding down with them. Lust did you behold. So he says, lust did you behold. The Hebrew appears to say, a hand did you behold. Blenkinsup's claim that yad, hand, means penis is dubious. He cites two purported proof texts, Isaiah 56:5, where yad clearly means memorial or marker, and Song of Songs 5:4-5, where yad clearly means hand. The translation follows the proposal of the New Jewish Publication Society version that relates yad here to the verbal stem ydd, which means to love, but this verset is metrically defective, having only two accents, so one suspects that there was originally a longer word here derived from ydd that is scribed contracted to yad, either because he was unfamiliar with an unusual term or because of prudery.
I mean, both are possible.
Yeah.
You journeyed to the king with oil and multiplied your perfumes. You sent your envoys far off and sent down even to Sheol.
So where it says the king, that's Molech.
Okay, gotcha. So they are going after these other gods, And
giving gifts of oil to Molech.
yep. And it's very, this is obviously a huge stretching problem because that last part of the verse there, and sent down even to Sheol.
Yeah, it may be a reference to Mot worship, the Canaanite god of death.
Yeah.
Okay. Not Mott the Hoople? Darn.
No.
You were wearied with the length of your way, but you did not say, it is hopeless. You found new life for your strength, and so you were not faint. Whom did you dread and fear? So, and this is another poem, I guess. Whom did you dread and fear, so that you lied and did not remember me, did not lay it to heart? Have I not held my peace even for a long time, and you do not fear me? Well, to be fair here, he hasn't really been the best got around at this point in time.
He's scary.
To the Jews.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, I guess he would be scary. Hasn't really been the greatest though.
Yeah, apparently 57:11 through 13 is obscure.
Okay.
So
I
there's
will
troubles. Also, we're talking about the harlot city, Jerusalem. It also appears in Proverbs 1 through 9.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that
Oh
was
my
like
God.
this different subsection of Proverbs. And like there was Lady Wisdom,
Yeah.
and then there was this harlot Jerusalem.
Yeah. There was I forget the name that she had in there.
So
But yeah, there was wisdom, and then there was basically this temptress, I guess. I forget what she went by.
Yeah, it says here that the language used in Trito Isaiah is very similar to Proverbs 1 through 9. Wisdom, the city's ancient guardian, calls to her children and warns them of the harlot's ways. The harlot's envoys go to Sheol. She is a loose foreign woman who has left her husband and her covenant. So these features are held in common between the two texts.
Makes sense. I will declare your righteousness and your deeds, but they will not profit you. When you cry out, let your collection of idols deliver you. The wind will carry them all off. A breath will take them away. But he who takes refuge in me shall possess the land and shall inherit my holy mountain. And also, yes, Ragabash was folly. Yes.
Yeah, so this section here, let those gathered round you save you. It's an ambiguous reference. Those gathered round could mean the gods that the paganizing Israelites have collected. It could refer to the adherents of the pagan cult. In all this, the denunciation of paganism in the Judahite community is a very different theme from what one finds in Isaiah 40 through 55. The aim of this later prophet is to purge the community of its wayward elements. A sharp division in the Judahite community is envisioned. Those who have exerted themselves to go after strange gods, verses 9 through 10, will be borne off by the wind, while those who have been steadfast in their loyalty to Yahweh will inherit the land, which is to say they will be the legitimate possessors of the Persian province of Yehud, now restored to the people of Israel.
Sure.
So
the thing that should be noted about this is if you have this guy talking about how horrible idol worship is and how useless that stuff is and how his own people have lusted after these things, it means that they were pretty what's the word I'm looking for? Syncretic? I think that's the word I'm looking for. Yeah. So
we're going into a new section here.
Yes. Still chapter 57, but a new section.
Yes. So Westerman denotes this is the first occasion in Trito Isaiah, verses 14 through 21, that we encounter an express oracle of salvation. It is, in fact, a proclamation of salvation. although the form is, like the rest, not so clearly contoured here as it is in Deutero-Isaiah. Two things are perfectly clear with regard to the utterance, its provenance from Deutero-Isaiah, and its difference from him. Hence, it is a perfect instance of what was demonstrated by Zimmerli in his study on the language of Trito-Isaiah, namely that in chapters 56 through 66, quotations from or reminiscences of Deutero-Isaiah consistently change the meaning of what they found on 57:14 in relation to 43.
I remembered that name that you just read off, Zimmerli. So this was actually one of the very first things that was, his study initially. It's actually like the very first thing that this first paper here in The Suffering Servant kind of notes the difference in definition for a certain Hebrew term, honestly. Yeah. So that was apparently that was something that was overlooked by Zimmerli's studies. But anyways, let's continue here. And it shall be said, build up, prepare the way, remove every obstruction from my people's way.
So when it says it shall be said, the Hebrew it says, and he said. It might be a prophet, it might be God. Build up, clear a road. In 2nd Isaiah, the road or highway is thoroughfare throughout the desert on which the exiles will pass on the way back to their land.
Yeah, there was a huge route there.
Yeah, it looks as though this later prophet, clearly familiar with both Isaiah and 2nd Isaiah, has picked up the image and turned it into a metaphor, as road or way is often used in the Bible for the right way before God. The stumbling block would thus be a sort of scandalous behavior that has been scathingly denounced.
Yeah, that's pretty much used in every language, though.
Yeah.
Like road and way is always used, literally and metaphorically.
Mm-hmm.
So you can use them however, really. For thus says the one who is high and lifted up, who inhabits eternity, whose name is holy. This is what he's saying. I dwell in the high and holy place. We already know he dwells in the high place, right? Because that's the name of the show that once we hit $200 a month on Patreon, we will be producing.
Yeah.
The High Place.
Yeah.
A dramedy.
It has nothing to do with The Good Place.
No, nothing to do with it.
Not even thematically similar.
Nope, not even a little.
Nope.
But yeah, The High Place, going to be real good. So consider. I dwell in the high and holy place, and also with him who is of contrite and lowly spirit, to revive the spirit of the lowly, and to revive the heart of the contrite. For I will not contend forever, nor will I always be angry, for the spirit would grow faint before me, and the breath of life that I made. Okay, so this is kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. Maybe a theological point here. So is this like the angrier? So for the spirit would grow faint before me. Does that mean the? Okay, does that refer to the spirit of the lowly or his own comments, spirit?
The proposed understanding of this verse is as follows. A spirit may be on the point of failing, but I, God, as the creator of all spirits, will show compassion and revive it.
Okay, fair enough. Because of the iniquity of his unjust gain, I was angry. I struck him. I hid my face and was angry, but he went on backsliding in the way of his own heart. So who is this referring to?
Backsliders.
Is this just some random
17?
This is verse 17.
I guess this is someone who's crushed and lowly in spirit, as was established earlier.
Yeah. I guess. Or maybe this is about. Yeah, I guess it would have to be that, right?
And I mean, there's no one else.
Well, I
that
mean,
I
I don't
can
know if there's
see.
any commentary on that from.
Talking to you, Lawrence. Just you.
Maybe it's like a situational thing. Like the person who's saying this in front of the temple, like pointed at someone.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Either way. I have seen his ways, but I will heal him. I will lead him and restore comfort to him and his mourners, creating the fruit of the lips.
So this appears to be a kenning for speech, though it does not occur elsewhere. The idea is that God, the creator of the faculty of speech, has the power to pronounce the healing words of peace.
Yeah, and then it continues there. Peace, peace to the far and to the near, says the Lord.
Mhm.
And I will heal him. But the wicked are like the tossing sea, for it cannot be quiet, for its waters toss up mire and dirt. There is no peace, says my God, for the wicked.
So
Ain't no rest for the wicked.
yes, the prophet continues his notion of a radical split in the people between the faithful and the derelict. This divide has an incipiently sectarian look, preparing the way for the book of Daniel and the Qumran texts. For there is no peace, said my God, for the wicked. This verse does not scan as a line of poetry. It could be a kind of epilogue to the prophecy, added editorially.
So one of the notes from before, what we were wondering about with the hiding his face and all that stuff. So of course hiding his face, that's happened before plenty, grammatically speaking.
Yes.
So Westerman seems to think that it is out of order. So he has a different. He has a different setup for it. I think that's what it looks like, or maybe I guess it's. I don't even know. But either way, the translation given follows the Septuagint and finds support from its closeness to Isaiah 54:7. Then continuing on here, the style used in a lament is also the source of the characteristic combination of God's anger and of his hiding himself. What causes God to be hidden from the sufferer who makes entreaty to him is the fact that the latter does not see God's face, and this means that his kindness, his turning toward the sufferer in friendliness, is hidden from him. So that's the explanation there.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, that is, in fact, the end of the chapter.
Yeah, if you're enjoying the stream so far, check us out on everything, Patreon and stuff.
Yeah, do you hear something?
I hear the bathroom calling.
What? Oh, well, damn.
Behold, I am your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and I want to let all you heathens and sinners know that I support this wonderful episode of Atheist Sunday School. Lawrence and Reuben try their very best to bring you the true glory of the Bible, and they need your help. They have provided links to their Patreon page and other social media just for you. Once again, my name is Jesus Christ, and this is Milwaukee Atheists. The Lord is with them. God bless.
Oh my God, Jesus Christ! Thank you for showing up again. And well, I mean, you didn't really take Ruben this time. I guess he went to the bathroom. I guess he'll be back for that, huh? Either way, we are starting chapter 58, and I guess I can, I think it's 58, right? Yeah, it's 58. So I guess we can. I'm going to do a little bit of an introduction. How's that sound, huh?
That's insane.
Okay. So in Isaic manner, Trio Isaiah makes the autumn festival the framework for his oracles. The trumpet and the declaration of sin indicate the cultic setting. Of course, if we go back to Leviticus, plenty of stuff there with trumpets and the declaration of sin. I cannot talk.
Wait, not today, huh?
No, not today, I guess. Oh my God! Look who's back from the bathroom. It's Ruben.
Oh man.
Hello, Ruben. Welcome.
When I was in the bathroom,
What happened?
Jesus appeared and gave me all the blessings. Now I have the magic powers.
Man,
I'm gonna turn this cherry Coke Zero into normal Coke Zero. Oh man, is it gonna work?
let's find out.
It's just cherry.
Incredible!
It
There's
worked.
no cherry flavor at all.
Incredible! That worked. I can't believe it.
I just don't.
That is amazing.
Isn't
That's
it?
the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, I'm a magic person. Anyways, there's another chapter here. This chapter 58.
Yeah.
So long.
It's about the same length as the other ones.
Yeah, how about that?
So not super long.
Yeah. Cry aloud, spare not, lift up thy voice like a trumpet, and show my people their transgression in the house of Jacob, their sins.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they do the voice like a trumpet thing a few times, right?
They do. Yeah. But do you remember all
Jericho?
Yeah, Jericho.
Yeah. And the shout magic.
Yeah.
Skyrim as fuck.
Boos.
Yep. L'chaim. Yet they seek me daily and delight to know my ways, as a nation that did righteousness and forsook not the ordinance of their God.
Oh, just to note here, so that command re-echoes two earlier prophetic utterances, Hosea 8:1, and Hosea, which is probably the oldest, probably part of the oldest layer of the Bible, Hosea and Amos, I would say, and Micah 3:8. Yeah, so Hosea 8:1, set the trumpet to your lips, and then it goes on, which could be a different thing, but I guess it has the same imagery, I suppose. And Micah 3:8, to declare to Jacob his transgression and to Israel his sin.
And we'll be covering Hosea in like
A while, because Jeremiah is very long.
months,
Also, yes.
many months.
But you know what? We're getting there. We're gonna get to everything.
Oh yeah, well I measured it out, and I think we're on like the last fifth, maybe the last fourth
Of the Old Testament?
of the Old Testament. There's only
Yeah, there's not much left.
I'll show the viewers. This is what's left.
Yeah, we're very, very close.
This is what we've read so far. So we're almost done. The
Yeah.
Old Testament.
Basically.
And we've been doing this for 3 years.
Yep. It takes a while.
It does.
The religious people.
We could have
Well,
just done this
often-
for 24 hours straight,
Yeah.
all the time, constantly, and maybe we would have made it a little farther.
But the religious people will often read through a Bible in like a year,
Yeah, yeah.
right? But they don't reference commentaries.
No, I mean, unless you're like in seminary or something.
right, unless you're in seminary, right?
Yeah.
So
The equivalent amateur version
And
of such.
yeah,
things.
let's just say that it's yeah, definitely your average Christian would not do that.
right,
Yeah.
we definitely go into more depth than they would,
Yeah.
which is why it's taken 3 years.
You know what? This is not easy.
No,
This is not easy.
No, it's not. It's a hard book to read.
Yeah, it's
Not
it's
because
like
of the difficult language, but because of the absurd ideas and like the
And-
complete disregard for any human like rights.
the thing is, we have to also explain, the time period
Yeah,
this was from.
yeah,
It was
to
all the
understand
style
it.
at the time.
Yes, pretty much. It was all the style at the time.
yeah. Great. Anyways, the nation did righteousness. They forsook not the ordinances of their God. They asked me the ordinances of justice. They take delight in approaching to God. Wherefore have we fasted, say they, and thou seest not? Wherefore have we afflicted our soul, and thou takest no knowledge? Behold,
Behold!
Behold, thanks.
in the day of your fast we find pleasure, and exact all your labors. Behold,
Behold!
Behold.
ye fast for strife and debate, and to smite with the fist of the wickedness. Ye shall not fast as ye do this day, to make your voice to be heard on high. Is it such a fast that I have chosen? A day for a man to afflict his soul? Is it to bow down his head as a bulrush, and to spread sackcloth and ashes under him? Wilt thou call this a fast and an acceptable day unto the Lord? It is not this the fast that I have chosen, to loose the bands of wickedness, to undo the heavy burdens, and to let the oppressed go free, and that ye break every yoke? Is it not to deal thy bread to the hungries, and that thou bring the poor that are cast out to thy house? When
Yes.
thou seest the naked, that thou cover him, and that thou hide not thyself from thine own flesh.
Yeah, so quite a few things to cover there, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's about fasting, the festival stuff. So we are now told of the fasting that does please God,
Right.
after we're told what
But
doesn't.
if you're engaging in a fast because you want to get special favor with God, he doesn't like that.
Yeah.
If you're engaging with in a fast in order to accomplish some personal end, or because of a traditional thing, he doesn't like that. He specifically wants you to fast so that you can loose the bands of wickedness, undo heavy burdens, and let the oppressed go free. So maybe for some
so
people that means giving their food away instead of eating it
Sure.
themselves.
So action directed towards God is replaced by action directed towards human beings. Can this still bear the title of fasting? We must not be blind to the fact that the prophet's way of putting it, the prophet's way of putting it is not that you are to do something else in place of fasting. His meaning can only be that the actions towards men and women now detailed have some connection with fasting, and that they may be designated as a mode of fasting. What makes the link is the factor of restricting oneself, doing without, which enters into both fasting and the acts of helping, which mean giving up things for oneself, as in Matthew 6:16. And it doesn't, have to, if you want to help someone, you don't always have to give up something other than time, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
But that's at the very minimum. The remarkable accumulation of different ways of expressing one single act of proper fasting, as against verse 7, where 4 clauses name 4 different acts, shows that in the eyes of the speaker here, of all the conceivable acts of help, one, loosing from bonds and setting men free, was of supreme importance. There can be no doubt that this is to be understood as a direct repercussion of what the entire nation had experience of, bondage in the exile. That's what they're going for, I suppose.
All right. Then shall thy light break forth as the morning, and thine health shall spring forth speedily, and thy righteousness shall go before thee. The glory of the Lord shall be thy reward. Then shalt thou call, and the Lord shall
Listen,
answer.
the Levites already got that one.
Right. Then shalt thou call, and the Lord shall answer. Thou shalt cry, and he shall say, Here I am. If thou take away from the midst of thee the yoke, the putting forth of the finger, and speaking vanity, And if thou draw out thy soul to the hungry and satisfy the afflicted soul, then shall thy light rise in obscurity, and thy darkness be as the noonday. And the Lord shall guide thee continually, and satisfy thy soul in drought, and make fat thy bones, and thou shalt be like a watered garden, and like a spring of water, whose waters fail not.
Oh, isn't that nice?
Oh, yeah, that's so nice. And the Lord shall guide thee continually, and satisfy thy soul in drought, and make fat thy bones, and thou shalt be like a watered garden, and a spring of water, whose waters fail not. And they that shall be of thee shall build the old waste places. Thou shalt rise up the foundations of many generations, and thou shalt be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of paths to dwell in. If thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy of the Lord honorable, and shall honor him, not doing thine own ways, nor finding thine own pleasure, nor speaking thine own words, then shalt thou delight thyself in the Lord, and I will cause thee to ride upon the high places of the earth, and feed thee with the heritage of Jacob thy father, for the mouth of the Lord hath spoken it.
Yeah, so this is very much about hallowing the Sabbath.
Yeah.
Pretty much exactly that. Just, keep it very holy.
Yep. And do it
Put some respect on its name.
Yeah. And you got to do it with the right intentions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. And that's the end of the chapter.
Yeah, kind of goes back to the whole fool stuff in Psalms.
That's a pretty straightforward chapter.
Yeah, honestly. All right, so we have one more chapter to go, huh?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, one more for the day. Chapter 59 it is. Here's some stuff for you. I know how much you love books, so let me get some books so you can book while you book.
Dude, I'm booked. I can't take those.
Very old jokes. Love them. What year did that become popular? Sorry. What year was that popular?
Like 2010.
2010? Okay,
Could have
2010.
been a little earlier,
Okay.
but around there.
Yeah.
The hooray for feeling old. Okay. Yes, so chapter 59. If you guys are enjoying the stream so far, please drop a like, subscribe if you haven't. Share the stream around, get some people watching and stuff. We like that. We like when people talk and watch and also talk and watch. So
chapter 59 is a most curious and odd creation. It is plainly a unity, but with what does it present us? A token of the difficulty can be seen in the fact that a large number of editors, Haller, Proch, Muhlenberg, etc., describe the chapter as a liturgy, while some, Kessler, call it a sermon. But surely there must be a difference between a sermon and a liturgy. What certainties do we have? As all editors remark, the chapter contains elements taken from a lament, a community lament. This is the first point for investigation. Verses 1 relate to the charge brought against God in the body of the community lament, and then challenge it. This means that right at the beginning, verse 1 contains the two elements which lay down the lines for the whole chapter. The community lament, to which verse 1 relates, carries on, but so does the prophetic voice raised in verse 1 to counter the unjustified charge being brought against God. This is the explanation of the curious interweaving of words taken from a lament and words spoken by a prophet, and this interweaving is the reason why some designate the whole thing as a liturgy, while others call it a sermon. The chapter's skeleton is that of a community lament, but it is a lament that has had an answer given it. What is responsible for the change is the fact that the voice of a prophet rebuts the charge brought against God. The lament addressed to him, for his part, brings charges against the nation and develops them. This makes a change on the lament in the first personal plural. It is then substantiated by means of the charge just being made against the nation. The confession of sin which ensues, being a part of the community lament, remains unaltered. In its present context, however, it also serves as an answer to the charge made by the prophet. The nation admits the sins of which it was accused. The expansion represented by verses 13 through 15 carries that of verses 5 through 8 further. After the confession of sin, God turns against his people who begin to cry to him in their extremity, and then intervenes as a redeemer against their enemies and for Zion. Verse 21 forms no part of what precedes it. It is a different
Yeah, it looks like
context.
it's completely standing out. Like everything else kind of looks like a poem, and then that just kind of looks like a narrative, I guess, prose.
This difficulty is still remaining in connection with the structure of the chapter, must be kept for the commentary. So, that's the general structure of this chapter.
One unit, except for 21, is just kind of weird.
Yeah, and the unit, there's not really much to say about it. It's a lament. Yeah. And that gets argued.
Well, I guess we'll see if it's a liturgy or a sermon. We'll get into that, I guess.
And
we won't, probably.
All he says about verse 21, I'm just going to note before we even get into it, is that it diverges a lot in style and subject matter.
Okay.
So that it can't have been the original placing.
Great. Anyways, chapter 59. Behold!
Behold.
The Lord's hand is not shortened that it cannot save, or his ear dull that it cannot hear. But your iniquities have made a separation between you and your God, and your sins have hidden his face from you, so that he does not hear.
Yeah, so the chapter divides into 3 sections.
You pushed him away.
So 59...
You drove him to this. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. 59, 1 and 16 resemble 50, 1 through 2, and may be a later comment on the hope expressed by Deutero-Isaiah that Jerusalem had not been abandoned. But the first major section is 59, 1 through 8, which addresses people who feel that the Lord neither hears them nor cares for them. Those who have separated themselves from the people of the land, who made separation from the impurity, their ideal, are told that they too have been separated from God by their iniquity. There follows a picture of corrupted society which has failed to make straight the way of the Lord. Altered notes on hiding his face. The Hebrew merely says face.
Oh, okay.
But the clear references to God, the first 2 verses of this chapter, are a strong articulation of a basic idea of prophetic theology. If you want to know why God appears to be absent, allowing the people of Israel to suffer grievously at the hands of its enemies, the explanation is that God has withdrawn his presence because of the people's offenses.
Like a turtle.
Mm-hmm. Thus, one should not imagine that God in any way lacks the capacity to rescue Israel or hear its prayers. Rather, the lack of divine intervention is solely the consequence of the people's actions.
Yep, that's how that works.
Wow, moral responsibility totally works that way.
Yeah. For your hands are defiled with blood, and your fingers with iniquity. Your lips have spoken lies. Your tongue mutters wickedness. No one enters suit justly. No one goes to law honestly. Oh, okay. So I see. So wait, hold on. Is he just assuming guilt here?
There is none who sues in righteousness or comes to court in good faith.
Huh?
That's what it says.
No, I know that's what it says. I get it. But
well, the verb used
that's
generally means to call or call out. The parallel term in the second verse at Nishpat comes to court suggests a judicial meaning, and that's the understanding of most biblical scholars. But yeah, that is presuming guilt if you even come before the court.
Actually, it seems like no matter who you are, right? If you are it doesn't matter if you're the plaintiff or the defendant, I guess.
Right. And like, I assume this is the part where...
Well, I mean, maybe you could interpret both of those to be the plaintiff, I guess.
Well, this is like the part here, which was mentioned earlier, that the prophet is rebutting the claims against God. They're established, right?
Okay. So
verse 1 and verse 2, where they establish that God hasn't been communicating with them or interacting with them or helping them.
Right.
Then verse 3 and 4, and it looks like 5.
Well, yeah. Right now they're supposed to be explaining why, and we get it because of their iniquities.
Well, the explanation why is like a rebuttal from the prophet against the people who have claimed this about God. So
okay.
It's like, because your palms are stained with blood, your fingers with crime, your lips speak lies, and your tongue utters wrongdoing. There is none who sues in righteousness. So it's saying here that not one of you who is making a claim against God is doing so righteously.
And okay, gotcha. That makes sense. They rely on empty pleas. They speak lies. They conceive mischief and give birth to iniquity. They hatch adder's eggs. They weave the spider's web. He who eats their eggs dies, and from one that is crushed a viper is hatched.
Yeah, so the two metaphors drawn from the two more disagreeable...
They're birthing iniquity is what they're doing.
Yeah, the animals are chosen to suggest the two different negative consequences of the miscreants' acts.
Yeah, you got snakes and spiders.
Yeah. Lethally poisonous effects and flimsy, useless insubstantiality in the case of the spider web.
Okay, those are pretty useful for spiders.
Yeah, they are.
Like, incredibly so.
And if you had, like, that level of tensile strength in a regular thing on our scale,
yeah,
like, spiderweb clothing is ridiculously strong.
Yeah.
I bet Alter's
Very
never
flammable,
read
but really
Spider-Man.
strong.
Yeah, you ever read Spider-Man? Good point.
Come on, that guy
Come on.
proves you wrong.
And from one that is crushed, a viper is hatched. Their webs will not serve as clothing.
It's like I didn't see that. I mean, wow. But we do that sometimes, very rarely. But we've done it.
Men will not cover themselves with what they make. Their works are works of iniquity, and deeds of violence are in their hands. Their feet run to evil, and they are swift to shed innocent blood. Okay, that's kind of like the stuff in Proverbs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, those guys, the bad guys that are always just looking out to do some bad. They want to do some evil. They're hiding out. Of course, it was all metaphorical, but still, they're hiding out. Yeah, so this is kind of returning to that. So yeah, their feet run to evil, and they are swift to shed innocent blood. Their thoughts are thoughts of iniquity. Desolation and destruction are in their highways. The way of peace they do not know, and there is no justice in their paths. They have made their roads crooked. No one who treads on them knows peace.
So the sequence of Proverbs 16 through 19, doubtless traditional, forms the basis for Isaiah 59, 1 through 8.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of that stuff come up before.
And there are other points of contact. Proverbs 1:16, 2:12 through 15, and 4:16 through 19. Trito-Isaiah addresses the same situation as the wise man who calls to wisdom's erring children, reminding them that the upright and innocent will inherit the land, and the wicked and treacherous will be rooted out. The speakers then, after 1 through 8, will go on to consider their own condition. They had hoped for a glorious new Jerusalem with justice and righteousness of the Davidic kings. In Instead, there's been gloom and darkness, with justice and righteousness far away. The situation in Jerusalem was apparently punishment for their sins.
Yeah.
Breaking the 10 Commandments.
Right. I mean, that was kind of
Wait. Not the sins of the breaking of the 10 Commandments, but the sins of the fallen angels, lying words, turning from the Lord, and rebellion.
Do you realize that 10 Commandments includes that?
Yeah. Whoops. This lady, man. I
Al-
think
always-
it's a lady.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Margaret Parker, yeah. Oh,
Way to draw some stuff that's not going to be drawn.
You don't need to go to
You don't.
Enoch.
You don't
all
need to
the
go to-
time.
Shout out to Enoch from her a million times.
like not everything is about Enoch. Okay.
Maybe Enoch is.
Except Enoch.
She must have really liked Enoch.
Yes, if you read, I've read one book from her, and it was called The Great Angel.
Yeah.
And in essence, it was kind of about Sophia, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what she was going for. But yeah, the amount of stuff that's pulled from different points in time, and it's very loosely tied together only by concept and not by time.
Yeah.
So it's not. So
It's
the pieces are there.
correlative.
It's correlative. The pieces are there. They just don't make a picture. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Anyways, or I just think it's a very flimsy picture that it's falling apart. You got to get a new picture. Anyways,
Bucket does not hold water.
yeah.
So this new section that we're going into, why don't you read 9 through 11, and I'll read quite a bit.
9 through 11.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do. Therefore, justice is far from us, and righteousness does not overtake us. We hope for light, and behold,
Behold.
darkness, and for brightness, but we walk in gloom. We grope for the wall like the blind. We grope like those who have no eyes. We stumble at noon, as in the twilight. Among those in full vigor, we are like dead men. We all growl like bears. We moan and moan like doves. We hope for justice, but there is none. For salvation, but it is far from us.
All right, so the second part of the lament in the first person plural, carries on the charge made against God implied in verse 1f. The therefore at the beginning of verse 9 connects this verse with what precedes it. Because of all this transgression, the nation must now suffer. The lament begins by saying that the state of affairs is one into which salvation does not enter, as in 56:1, Mishpat and Tzedakah are parallel, although their sense is different in the identical in the two places. Verse 9b describes disillusionment in terms almost identical with the community lament in Jeremiah 14. Also Lamentations 4:17. Verse 10 expand the lament from the first person plural by means of phrases and similes taken from tradition. With 10a, see laments 4:14. They wander through the streets like blind men. The next two sentences put the same thing in different words. The meaning of the final half verse cannot be gathered from the text itself, and the translation given is mere conjecture. The comparison of the sound of mourning with those made by animals is found in Babylonian psalms. Zimmerli adduces words from a hymn to Ishtar. Quote, I sigh like a dove day and night, end quote. In the Old Testament itself, see Isaiah 38:14 and Nahum 2:8. There is no known parallel to the growling of the bear as the sound of murmuring. Verse 11b reverts to 9a. Reading this lament with an eye to the state of affairs which it describes and attending to the emphasis put on 9b, and 11b, which of course also form the background of the charge against God contained in verse 1f. One is given a moving testimony to a mood of bitter disenchantment and despondency as over against the lofty and brilliant prophecies which had just proclaimed that the exile was at its end. In all probability, we today just can't conceive how deep the disillusionment went then, or what it meant in this state of affairs to continue to hold fast to God's promises.
No, I think we can conceive of that.
I get it.
Yeah, I can conceive of that.
Yeah.
This author's just
But yeah,
so limited in their imagination.
Yeah,
I'm sure that you would have to be pretty stubborn to, yeah.
Anyways, for our transgressions are multiplied before you, and our sins testify against us. For our transgressions are with us, and we know our iniquities, transgressing and denying the Lord, and turning back from following our God, speaking oppression and revolt, conceiving and uttering from the heart lying words. So basically confirming all the stuff that was said before.
Mm-hmm.
Justice is turned back, and righteousness stands far away. For truth has stumbled in the public squares, and uprightness cannot enter. Truth is lacking, and he who departs from evil makes himself a prey.
So
Yeah, it's a little section on its own there.
So verse 14
Through 15b.
Yeah. For truth stumbles in the square. Since the square is the chief public place of the ancient city, usually facing the gates where the courts of justice were held, the implication is that the entire society has violated the principles of justice. Well, I really don't have anything in here about 15a, but the climax of chapter 59 is 15b through 21.
Yes, there it is. Okay.
Yeah. So
The Lord saw it, and it displeased him. There was no justice. He saw that there was no man, and wondered that there was no one to intercede. Then his own arm brought him salvation, and his righteousness upheld him. So he made things better for his own sake?
because he was sad.
Okay. Whatever works, I guess.
Yeah.
He put on righteousness as a breastplate and a helmet of salvation on his head. He put garments of vengeance for clothing and wrapped himself in zeal as a cloak.
So
he looks like a superhero.
So now we're drawing from ancient Canaanite imagery of the warrior god,
And
which appears
also
with some frequency in biblical poetry.
he's so very close.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Yahweh was a war and storm god.
So
He's right there. He's right there. He's like, yeah, that imagery appears quite frequently, and I'm like, yeah, wonder why.
Yahweh is a warrior. He's designated warrior in Isaiah 42:13 and 52:10.
Yeah, it happens throughout the entire book. Honestly,
This is clearly allegorical clothing.
well, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, what if he is the servant? What if to treat Uzziah, he's the servant, right? Because he's suffering willingly, right?
He's not the servant, Lord.
I know he's not the servant.
He was a wannabe.
Cyrus is the servant, Lawrence. Or Moses is the servant. Or
Well,
maybe
no.
Jesus,
Well,
or
it
maybe
would have to be the
like
suffering servant, so it wouldn't be
Isaiah's
Cyrus.
son, or maybe
It could have been
Hezekiah.
Jeremiah or
Maybe,
Hezekiah. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be
It's definitely Job. Come on, guys.
just about anyone.
All right. Where was I here? According to their deeds, so he will repay. Wrath to his adversaries, repayment to his enemies. To the coastlands he will render repayment. So they shall fear the name of the Lord from the west, and his glory from the rising of the sun. For he will come like a rushing stream. Phrasing.
Yeah.
For he shall come like a pent-up river.
It's still not. That's not good.
Okay, anyways. Yeah, that doesn't make it any better. Which the wind of the Lord drives, and a redeemer will come to Zion, and those in Jacob who turn from transgression, declares the Lord. Yeah, he will come to Zion to those in Jacob.
Yeah.
And then this last verse is the one that's kind of stands out. And as for me, this is my covenant with them, says the Lord. My spirit that is upon you, and my words that I have put in your mouth shall not depart out of your mouth, or out of the mouth of your offspring, or out of the mouth of your children's offspring, says the Lord, from this time forth and forevermore.
Yeah, so this is a formal conclusion to the whole section, running from chapters 56 through 59.
Perfect.
My spirit that's upon you. The you is singular, but the claim that it refers to the prophet with your seed, indicating his disciples, is questionable, since formulations in Deuteronomy and elsewhere clearly indicate that the Spirit of God is what will continue to invest in the covenanted people for all times, and there's no warrant for the use of seed in the sense of disciple rather than as a term for biological offspring. Seed is precisely in this sense repeatedly what figures in the covenantal promise to Abraham. So goes back to Genesis, right?
Yeah. All right. So I think that was not a bad reading.
No, and we're almost done with Isaiah.
Yeah, very close. So thank you everyone for joining us. We hope you enjoyed the stream. If you did, or if you didn't, if you did, drop a like, because it actually does help us out a lot.
Yeah.
And
If you didn't drop a like,
No,
it
it-
actually helps us out a
Well,
lot.
if you
If you don't have an opinion, drop a like. It actually helps us out a
also,
lot.
also,
Yeah.
if you really didn't like it, go ahead and drop a dislike, because it really helps us out a lot.
Yeah, and if you want to help us out more, you can check out our Amazon wish list. We're going to
Yes.
be getting into
Link-
Jeremiah soon.
Link
and-
is in the description if you want to help us out by getting us a Jeremiah commentary. It's right there.
yeah, or if you want to buy me a late birthday present.
Oh yeah,
Check
Really
it
that's
late
out.
true.
for the birthday.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, we
pretty
got
late.
we got 2 birthdays that passed.
But yeah, anyways.
Yeah, let's see what we got.
There's also
Patreon.
Patreon, yeah.
Yeah, got Patreon.
Teespring.
Yeah, lots of cool stuff on Patreon.
Yeah, the
So-
Facebook, the Twitter.
Yeah, free to follow us there.
And, you can be on this show if you want.
Yeah, you get our scripts and books and
Yeah, you can, if you donate $50 a month or more. I mean, you could donate more. You can be on
nothing's
the
stopping
show.
you. Nothing's stopping you. There's also the $10,000.
Yeah,
one,
yeah. No, after
They'll give you
the
a high five.
pandemic.
Yeah, after the pandemic.
Yeah, one of us will get on an airplane, give you a high five.
Yep.
$10,000
United
bucks.
States.
Yeah, in the continental United States. Anyways, yeah. So
We're not gonna stick around. Like if you pay $10,000, we'll go out there,
give you a high five.
give you a high five, get on the next plane back home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Round trip.
Yeah,
So
I gotta get
anyways,
that plane in an
we-
hour
we
that I
might be-
registered.
we might be able to hang out at an airport bar.
Yeah,
or
that
something,
works.
But you're buying.
I love airport bars.
10,000 plus drinks. All right.
Yeah.
Either way, we hope you enjoyed the show today. And yeah, all links are in the description. And we will see you on Friday.
and then
Also
Sunday.
Sunday. We do shows on both those days.